Welcome to Goodreads Self-Growth. Today we are really getting into a topic that I think is on everyone's mind in one way or another. We're discussing the book, The Mental Toughness Handbook by Damon Zahariades.
Which is, it's just a powerhouse of a book. I'm really excited to get into this one.
Me too. And we're going to be focusing on a few key areas. We'll look at the 7 habits of mentally tough people, which is the real, practical core of it.
Right. The how-to.
Exactly. And then we'll get into overcoming those internal adversaries. Things like self-pity, fear, the voices in our own heads that hold us back.
The enemy within, it's the toughest one to fight.
It really is.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll look at some of the actual practical mental training techniques, the kind of stuff used by, believe it or not, Navy SEALs.
Yeah, the gold standard. It's going to be a great conversation.
Okay, so to kick this off, I want to paint a picture for you.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine 2 runners. They're side by side on the same track. It's one of those humid, gross days where the air feels like soup. They're running the exact same distance. And then, bam, they both hit this steep, nasty, gravelly hill right at mile 10.
Ugh, the worst mile. The mile where everything starts to hurt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The legs are burning. The calves feel like they're being stabbed with needles. The lungs are just screaming for air. It is physically painful.
We've all been there in some form, that wall.
Exactly. Now, runner A feels that burn. And immediately, almost like a reflex, their internal monologue shifts. It becomes this little siren song in their head,
The quit demon.
Yeah. This is too hard. Why did I sign up for this? I'm going to hurt myself. I need to stop. And
yeah.
They do. They pull over to the side, hands on their knees, just gasping.
Which is a very human reaction. Pain usually signals stop. That's its job.
It is. It's a logical response.
Yeah.
But then you look over at runner B, they're feeling the exact same pain. Their physiology isn't any different. Their quads are burning just as hot.
Yeah.
But they don't stop. In fact, when that pain hits, they seem to dig in harder. They lean into the hill, they crest the top, and they just keep going.
And this is a scenario that, it obsesses psychologists and coaches and leaders everywhere. The question is, why? Is runner B just genetically gifted? Do they have some kind of mutant pain threshold?
Or are they just lucky?
No.
Is it just something they were born with?
Right. Or is there something else going on in the machinery of their mind?
That is the million-dollar question we are tackling today. We're doing a deep dive into the Mental Toughness Handbook. And the answer, according to this book, is honestly, it's a bit of a relief.
A relief? How so?
Because it turns out runner B isn't a magician. They aren't a mutant. They've just built a specific type of muscle.
But not a physical muscle. We're not talking about bigger quads here.
Exactly. We were talking about a psychological one.
Yeah.
We're talking about mental toughness. And the core thesis here, the big takeaway, is that this isn't a trait that's just reserved for the elite or the lucky or people born with ice in their veins.
It is a learned psychological edge.
And learned edge, that's the key.
That is the most important takeaway right off the bat. If you take nothing else away from this whole discussion, take this. Mental toughness is trainable. Zahariades leans really heavily on the concept of neuroplasticity.
Now, we hear that word a lot, neuroplasticity, but let's actually break down what it means in this context. Because I think people hear it and think, oh, my brain can change, but they don't really grasp the mechanics of it.
Yeah, it sounds like a science fiction term. But think of your brain like a dense forest. If you walk the same path every single day, let's say that path is giving up when it gets hard, that path becomes a wide paved highway.
Right, it gets worn in.
It's easy to walk down. Your brain loves it because it's efficient.
Yeah.
That's a neural pathway. Neuroplasticity is the ability to, bushwhack a new path.
So when you decide to push through that pain for the very first time, it's like hacking through the jungle with a machete.
It's exhausting. It's slow. Your brain hates it. It wants to go back to the highway. But if you do it again tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, the grass gets trampled down.
The path starts to form.
Eventually, that new path, the path of grit, becomes the new highway, and the old path of quitting starts to grow over with weeds. The brain is not a fixed machine with a factory warranty. It is a learning system.
So if I'm someone who usually crumbles under pressure, if I'm runner A right now, today, that's not my destiny. I'm not stuck like that.
No, not at all. That's just your current setting. It's your current level of fitness. And just like you can't run a marathon if you've been sitting on the couch for 5 years, you can't expect to be mentally tough instantly, but you can train for it.
I really like that reframing. It takes the shame out of it. It's not that I'm weak, it's just that I haven't done the reps yet.
You haven't built the muscle. Simple as that.
So here is our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just going to talk about surviving a bad day or powering through. We're going to break down the specific habits of the mentally tough. We're going to look at the enemies living inside our own heads, that nasty inner critic, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get into the actual training techniques used by Navy SEALs to stay calm when everything is hitting the fan.
And before we get into the how, we really need to clarify the what, because the book makes this fascinating distinction that I think a lot of people miss. We often hear the word resilience thrown around.
Oh yeah, all the time.
But Zahariades argues that mental toughness and resilience are actually two different things.
I found this really interesting because, I'll be honest, I've always used them interchangeably. If someone is tough, they're resilient, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
They are definitely related, but they aren't the same. Think of it this way. Resilience is about the rebound.
The bounce back.
Exactly. It's the ability to bounce back after adversity strikes. You get knocked down, you get back up. It is fundamentally about recovery.
Okay, so resilience is, I had a terrible day at work, my big presentation bombed, I went home, I felt awful, I slept it off, and I'm ready to try again tomorrow. That's resilience.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
resilience, and that's incredibly valuable. But mental toughness, that is about the attitude you maintain during the adversity. It's about being in the fire and not just surviving it, but maintaining a positive, proactive mindset while the heat is on.
So it's about your state of mind in the middle of the mess.
Precisely.
The source material gave a great example of this, the traffic jam scenario. And I want to dig into this because I have a specific bone to pick with it.
Go on, I'm listening.
Okay, so the example is this. You are stuck in total gridlock. You're going to be late. A resilient person sits there. Maybe they're white-knuckling the steering wheel, hating every single second of it. They're stressed, they're cursing, but they get through it.
Right. They endure.
They get to their destination, they calm down, and they move on with their day. That's resilience.
Right. They survived the event and recovered.
But the book says the mentally tough person looks at that same traffic jam and reframes it immediately. They don't just endure it. They say, okay, I can't control the cars, but I have 35 minutes here. This is a welcome opportunity to listen to that audiobook I've been meaning to finish.
Okay.
Now, here's my question. Is that realistic? Or is that just, toxic positivity? Because if I'm late for a wedding or a job interview, I am not going to be thrilled about an audiobook. I'm going to be freaking out.
That is a completely fair pushback, and I think the distinction is in the utility, not the joy. The mentally tough person isn't necessarily jumping for joy that there is traffic. They aren't lying to themselves and saying, oh boy, I love traffic.
Okay, good, because that would be insane.
Right, but they are recognizing a fundamental truth. Being angry will not move the cars. Being stressed will not clear the highway.
Okay, that's undeniable. My blood pressure won't make the lane clear up.
Exactly. So given that the anger is useless, it's just burning energy for no reason, the mentally tough person chooses a pragmatic alternative. It's not about toxic happiness. It's about mental and emotional efficiency. Why waste 45 minutes being miserable and spiking your cortisol when you could spend those 45 minutes learning something or just calming down?
It's about not letting the external circumstance dictate your internal state.
You've got it. It's a refusal to cede control of your mind to something you can't control.
So it's about control. Resilience is recovering after you lost control. Mental toughness is keeping control in the first place.
Beautifully put, yes. It is about not letting the situation break your spirit to begin with.
This sounds an awful lot like emotional intelligence, or EQ.
It is the absolute bedrock of it. We have to be careful here because there is another myth we need to bust right away. There is this idea that mental toughness means being stone-faced. The stoic action hero who feels nothing.
Right, the Clint Eastwood type, the guy who walks away from the explosion without looking back, just completely flat effect.
Exactly. That is Hollywood, not psychology. If you try to suppress your emotions, they don't go away. They just go underground, and then they will eventually explode, usually at the worst possible time.
On someone you love, probably.
Usually. Real mental toughness isn't about not feeling anger or fear or sadness. It is about feeling those things, acknowledging them, oh, there's that feeling, but not letting them dictate your reaction.
So you feel the flash of rage when someone cuts you off in traffic.
You feel it. You notice it. You say to yourself, oh, I'm angry right now. My heart is racing. But you don't let your hand slam the horn.
Yeah.
You don't let your mouth scream the insult. You observe the feeling without becoming it.
It's that famous gap, isn't it? The gap between stimulus and response.
Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Mentally tough people widen that space. They live in that space. They don't just react on instinct.
Okay, so we have the definition. It's not about being a robot, and it's not just about bouncing back. It's about how we handle the moment. So let's unpack how we actually get there. The book outlines 7 habits of mentally tough people. These are the qualities that, if we practice them, build that muscle we talked about.
And the first one is arguably the most important because it saves you the most energy. It's the habit of accepting limitations. Specifically, what the Stoics called the dichotomy of control.
This feels very stoic. Epictetus would be proud.
He absolutely would. The core idea is that mentally tough people do not waste a single calorie of energy on things they cannot control. They don't scream at the weather, they don't rage at the economy, they don't lose sleep over other people's opinions of them.
Which is so hard to do. I mean, complaining about the weather is practically a national sport. Complaining about the government, about traffic, about our boss. It feels good, doesn't it? It's a release.
It feels good in the moment, sure. Like scratching a mosquito bite feels good. But what happens when you scratch it?
It gets worse. It bleeds. It gets infected.
It gets inflamed. Complaining is the same way. It validates your victimhood. It reinforces the neural pathway that says, I am helpless here. Mentally tough people look at the whole board and say, okay, these are the pieces I can't move. I can't move the weather. I can't move the delayed flight. So what pieces can I move?
So using the flight example, if the flight gets canceled, the resilient person might cry and then rebook. The mentally tough person,
Yeah.
what do they do?
The mentally tough person sees the canceled sign on the board. They feel that pang of disappointment. Of course they do. But they instantly switch to operational mode. They are already on their phone's app, booking the hotel or finding a rental car before the person next to them has finished screaming at the poor gate agent.
They channel 100% of their energy into what they can influence and 0% into complaint.
Precisely, which leads directly into the second habit, flexibility and adaptability. Because if you accept you can't control everything, you have to be willing to change your plan when things inevitably go wrong.
The source mentioned a startup founder here, and I think that's a perfect setting for this habit. It's such a volatile world.
Yes, it's the perfect laboratory. Imagine a founder who has spent 2 years of her life, all her money, building a product. She launches it. She has the big party. Crickets! It flops! The market hates it. No one buys it.
That is an absolute nightmare scenario. Most people would just spiral.
A person lacking mental toughness might start blaming the customers. They just don't get it. They might blame the economy or their investors, or they might just curl up in a ball and quit. But the mentally tough founder, she pivots.
But isn't that painful? To admit that your baby, the thing you worked on for 2 years, was wrong.
Ideally, she doesn't view it as being wrong in a moral or personal sense. She views it as the market giving her information, giving her data. She looks at the data, adapts the plan, and moves immediately. She doesn't mourn the death of the old plan for weeks. She is too busy executing the new one.
So this habit is about killing inertia. When the plan breaks, don't freeze. Move.
Yes. But that requires a lot of confidence, though, to just pivot like that without taking it personally.
It does, which is why habit number 3 is so critical. Robust self-awareness. You have to know yourself. You have to know your strengths, but more importantly, you have to know your weaknesses and your triggers.
I feel like self-awareness is a buzzword that gets thrown around in HR meetings. What does it actually look like in practice when it comes to mental toughness?
It looks like strategy. It looks like knowing the user manual for your own machine. For example, do you know what happens to your decision-making ability when you haven't slept?
Oh, it falls off a cliff. I become a toddler. I get emotional. I can't think clearly.
Right, me too. So if you are mentally tough and self-aware, you don't schedule a high-stakes negotiation for 8 a.m. after a red-eye flight. You manage your environment to protect your mind. Or let's take the classic hangry example.
Angry when hungry. That's me. 100%.
If you know that about yourself, you never go into a difficult conversation with your spouse on an empty stomach. You eat a protein bar first. It's not just about willpower. It's knowing how to operate your own dashboard so you don't overheat.
That makes so much sense. It's proactive, not just reactive. Okay, habit 4. Action despite uncertainty. Now, this one hits home for a lot of people who get stuck in analysis paralysis.
This is the refusal to be deterred by the unknown. We all want a guarantee. We all want to know that if we start this business, it will succeed. If we ask this person out, they will say yes. If we make this change, it will be for the better.
But we can never know that. There are no guarantees.
Never. Mentally tough people acknowledge that the plan might fail. They acknowledge they don't have all the data, but they act anyway.
Because doing nothing is often worse than doing the wrong thing. At least if you do the wrong thing, you learn something.
Exactly. In the military, they have a saying, violence of action. A bad plan executed violently now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. The willingness to act, to step into the unknown, is what builds the toughness. Every time you do it and the world doesn't end, you prove to your brain that you can handle it.
Now, habit 5 is one of my absolute favorites because it completely changes how you look at failure. It's the habit of reframing disappointment as data.
This is crucial. It's so powerful. Failures are not setbacks. They are feedback. The source material brings up Thomas Edison.
The classic, I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. It's on a million motivational posters for a reason.
It is a cliche because it's true. But let's look at a more modern example from the text, the one about Ratan Tata.
Oh, the story about the car launch. Yes, tell us that one.
So Tata Motors launched this car called the Indica. It was supposed to be this revolutionary, affordable car for India. But initially, it was a total failure. People criticized it. The engine was underpowered. The market wasn't responding well. It was a public humiliation.
And for a businessman of his stature, that's not just a financial loss. That's a massive loss of face.
Huge loss of face. He could have viewed that as a personal failure. He could have said, I'm bad at making cars, let's just stick to steel. But he didn't. He viewed the failure as pure data. What is wrong with the car? What does the market actually want? What feedback are we getting?
So he didn't internalize it as, I'm a failure.
No. He externalized it as, the project has failed to meet its goals, let's analyze why. That eventually led to re-engineering, relaunching, and eventually the massive success of the Nano and the growth of Tata Motors into a global powerhouse. He viewed failure not as a character flaw, but as an indicator on a dashboard.
That separation is key. Failure is an event, not a person. You are not a failure. The experiment failed. There's a huge difference.
Huge. And that allows you to maintain habit number 6. Mastering negative emotions. It's about not allowing that anger or that frustration from failure to escalate and take over.
Which goes right back to that pause we talked about earlier, that space between stimulus and response.
It does. It's about keeping the upper hand over your own psyche. You are the driver, not the passenger of your emotions. You feel them, but they don't steer the car.
And finally, habit 7, practical optimism. Now, we touched on this with the traffic jam, but tell me how this is different from just blind positivity. Because I think people get really annoyed, I get annoyed, when they are told to just look on the bright side when things are genuinely on fire.
Yeah, that's infuriating. Blind positivity is ignoring the fire. It's standing in a burning house saying, this is fine, I'm warm. That's not optimism, that's delusion. And it's dangerous.
So what's practical optimism?
Practical optimism, or cautious optimism as the book calls it, is acknowledging the fire. Okay, the house is on fire, that is a real and serious problem. But then immediately believing, I have the capacity to find the fire extinguisher, I have the capacity to get out, we can solve this.
It's confidence in your own agency, not in the universe just fixing it for you.
Yes. It's focusing on hope rather than despair. It allows you to spot opportunities in the middle of a crisis. While everyone else is panicking and staring at the flames, the practical optimist is looking for the exit. Or, better yet, looking for a way to use the crisis to their advantage down the line.
Snatching victory from the jaws of defeat.
That's the phrase. So those are the habits. But we have to be honest, it's not a smooth road. You can't just decide to have these habits and then poof, you have them. There are obstacles standing in the way. The book calls them the adversaries.
And the biggest one isn't outside of you. It's not the economy or the traffic or your boss. It's inside.
It's inside us.
The inner critic.
Ugh. This is the voice that whispers, you're not good enough, or you're going to mess this up right before you step on stage or into a big meeting.
It is the most formidable foe because it sounds like you. It knows all your deepest insecurities. It has a perfect record of all your past mistakes. It magnifies failures and completely downplays successes.
And its primary effect is paralysis. It stops you from even trying.
It stops you from taking action. So how do we fight something that's inside our own head? You can't run away from it. The book suggests what it calls a courtroom strategy.
I love this technique because it forces you to use logic against emotion. You put the negative thought on trial.
Okay, let's role play this so the listeners can hear what it actually sounds like. I'll be the inner critic. You be the mentally tough self using this courtroom strategy.
All right, game on. Hit me with it.
Okay, clears throat. Look at you. You're trying to lead this project. You're a complete fraud. You're gonna fail, just like you messed up that important email last week. Everyone is gonna see you for the imposter you are.
Objection. That is speculation and conjecture. I am demanding hard evidence. You cited the email from last week. That was a typo, not a catastrophic failure of leadership. Where is the actual evidence that I am a fraud? Show me the proof.
Well, you feel nervous. If you were truly competent, you wouldn't feel so nervous right now.
Objection. Feelings are not facts. The prosecution is confusing correlation with causation. Nervousness is a normal physiological response to a challenge. It does not correlate to competence. Now, if I may, I'd like to present the defense as evidence. Fact. I hit my sales targets last quarter by 120%. Fact. My boss explicitly asked me to lead this project based on my past performance. Fact. I have 5 years of direct experience in this field. The evidence suggests I am capable.
Okay, fine. Case dismissed.
You see, when you confront the critic with cold, hard facts, it just crumbles. The critic thrives on vague fears and unsubstantiated emotions. It cannot survive cross-examination.
It is so powerful. You literally dismantle the argument. You replace the emotional lie with a rational fact.
You strip it of its power. Another one of these adversaries is self-pity, the why me syndrome. It is a massive energy drain.
It feels justified, though, sometimes. Why did my tire have to go flat today, of all days?
It feels justified, but it gets you nowhere. It keeps you stuck in the problem rather than moving toward the solution. It's closely linked with its cousin, self-doubt, which sows the seeds of inaction. Think of the aspiring musician mentioned in the book.
The one who quits.
Yes. She doubts her talent. She thinks, I'll never be as good as Beyoncé, so why bother?
Yeah.
So she stops practicing. And because she stops practicing, she doesn't improve. And because she doesn't improve, she proves her own doubt right. It's a vicious, self-fulfilling cycle.
Compare that to the musician who feels that same doubt but practices anyway.
She breaks the cycle through action. She gets better because she practiced, proving the doubt wrong. Action is the antidote to almost all of these internal adversaries.
Even with fear and catastrophizing.
Especially with those. Fear distorts reality. It makes a molehill look like Mount Everest. The book gives the example of the public speaker who is terrified of embarrassing themselves. They get so stiff and awkward and shaky that they do end up embarrassing themselves. The fear creates the outcome.
And then there is perfectionism. I think a lot of high achievers, myself included, struggle with this one. We think it's a strength. Oh, I just have high standards. I'm a perfectionist. People say it like a badge of honor in job interviews.
They do. But Zahariades argues it is actually a form of weakness. He calls it fear dressed up in a tuxedo.
Fear in a tuxedo. I like that. That's good.
It stifles progress because anything less than flawless is unacceptable. And since nothing is ever flawless, you never ship the product. You never submit the manuscript. You procrastinate endlessly because you are terrified of your imperfect work being judged.
So perfectionism is actually just a fancy way of hiding from criticism.
It's a shield. If I don't finish it, you can't judge it as a finished product.
Wow, that hits deep. That's a big one. And lastly, we have laziness and what the book calls motivation traps.
The insight here is vital. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. Mentally tough people do not wait to feel like it. If you wait until you feel like going for a run in the pouring rain, you will never go. No one feels like running in the rain.
They rely on discipline when the motivation inevitably fades.
Exactly. Discipline is what you do when you don't want to do it.
Okay, so we know the habits we need to build. We know the enemies inside us. Now I want to get into the really cool stuff, the training. The book specifically looks at Navy SEALs. I mean, these guys are the gold standard for mental toughness.
They really are. And what's so fascinating is that SEAL Training Buddy S places more emphasis on psychological fitness than physical fitness.
Really, because when I think of SEALs, I think of guys carrying giant logs, doing push-ups in the freezing surf, running for miles. It looks pretty physical to me.
That is part of it, of course. But the instructors will tell you, the body can do amazing things. It's the mind that usually gives up first. They know that if they can break a candidate's mind, the body will follow. But if the mind holds, the body can push past incredible, unbelievable limits.
And here is a fact that I find really comforting. SEALs feel fear just like everyone else.
They aren't robots. They aren't fearless.
They are not fearless. They just have a toolkit of tactics to regulate that fear, to manage it.
Let's open that toolkit. Technique number 1 is positive self-talk.
No.
Now, hold on. This sounds fluffy. This sounds like affirmations in the mirror. I am beautiful. I am strong. Does a Navy SEAL really do that while under fire?
Not like that. It's not about affirmations. It's about instructions. In a life or death situation, it is critical and it's very specific. Imagine the underwater equipment failure drills. They call it pool comp.
This is where they sabotage your gear while you are at the bottom of a pool.
Yes. You are 15 feet down. An instructor swims up, rips your mask off, ties your air hoses in a knot, and spins you around. You can't see, you can't breathe, and you are completely disoriented. The natural biological human reaction is panic.
Sheer terror, fight or flight.
Exactly. And if you panic underwater, you bolt for the surface. If you bolt without exhaling properly, the air in your lungs expand and you get an embolism, you die. Or at the very least, you fail the course.
So how do they stop the panic? How do they override that primal urge?
They use specific, practiced internal dialogue to override the amygdala, the brain's fear center. They don't say, oh my God, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. They say, I can handle this. Step 1, find the hose. Step 2, untie the knot. Step 3, clear the mask, breathe. They direct their brain step by step through the procedure.
So they use language to force the brain back into its logical problem-solving mode. They're literally narrating their own survival.
Yes. It's a manual override for the panic button. And you can apply this in a boardroom. If a client is screaming at you, instead of panicking and getting defensive, you tell yourself, I am prepared, I have the data, listen to him, let him vent, then respond calmly with fact A.
That's incredibly practical. It turns a chaotic emotional situation into a simple checklist. What about the sheer volume of pain? I mean, how do they get through Hell Week? That's 5 days, 4 hours of sleep total, and just constant physical misery.
That brings us to technique 2. Segmentation, or what they call micro goals. If a SEAL candidate stands on the beach on Sunday night and thinks, I have to survive until Friday afternoon, he will quit. The goal is too big, it's crushing. The brain cannot compute suffering for that long.
It's too overwhelming to even contemplate.
So what do? They shrink the world. They don't think about Friday. They don't even think about tomorrow. They think about the next meal. I just have to make it to lunch.
That's it.
That's it. Once they make it to lunch, they say, okay, new goal. I just have to make it to dinner. Sometimes it gets even smaller than that. In the middle of a long, cold run, it's, I just have to make it to the next telephone pole.
Just one bite at a time, breaking an impossible task into possible chunks.
Exactly. By achieving these tiny motivational wins, they prevent the brain from getting overwhelmed. They get a tiny hit of dopamine every time they hit a micro goal, and that chemical fuel is what keeps them moving to the next one.
I realized I use this when I'm cleaning my disastrously messy house. If I look at the whole house, I want to go back to bed. But if I just say, I'm only going to clean the sink, I can do that. And then it's, okay, now I'll just wipe the counter.
That is the exact same principle. It works for cleaning, it works for writing a novel, it works for marathons, and it works for combat. Technique 3 is visualization. But SEALs do it differently than your average self-help guru.
They don't just visualize winning. They don't just manifest the medal by thinking about it.
They do visualize success, yes.
Yeah.
They see the mission going perfectly from start to finish. But, and this is the critical part, they spend just as much time, maybe more, visualizing the problems. They visualize the what-ifs.
So they rehearse the disaster in their minds.
What if the helicopter is late? What if my weapon jams during a firefight? What if the comms go down and we're cut off? They imagine the problem, and then they imagine the fix. They practice the solution in their head beforehand. So when the weapon actually jams in the field, the brain doesn't go into shock. It says, oh, I've seen this before. I know what to do.
That completely reduces the surprise factor. It makes the abnormal feel normal and manageable.
Drastically. For a listener, if you have a big presentation coming up, don't just visualize the applause at the end. Visualize the projector bulb blowing out. Visualize forgetting your notes. See yourself handling it calmly. Then, if it happens, you are ready. You've already been there in your mind.
That is such a huge confidence booster. And finally, technique 4, continuous skill refinement.
This is the humility aspect of mental toughness. Even after they are elite, badged Navy SEALs, they practice the absolute basics every single day. They do reload drills. They do basic navigation, just like a professional writer writes every day, or a world-class dancer does bar work. You don't achieve mental toughness and then stop. You have to sharpen the blade constantly.
Which is a perfect transition to our final section. We aren't SEALs. Most of us are not doing underwater demolition.
Right.
But we can build a gym for our minds in everyday life. What are the practical exercises the book recommends for us regular folks?
The first one is my favorite because it is so simple, but so profoundly effective. Discomfort training.
Sounds unpleasant.
That is the entire point. The concept is to deliberately and safely introduce small discomforts into your life to desensitize your brain to stress.
Give me an example. What does this look like?
Cold showers?
Everyone talks about cold showers.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a cult? Why is this the go-to example for everything?
Because it works and it's accessible to almost everyone. Look, when that ice-cold water hits you, your brain screams, "Get out! This is bad! I am dying." It is a visceral shock to the system. By staying in, by controlling your breathing and just standing there, you are training your brain to override that panic impulse. You are building a new neural pathway that says, "I am uncomfortable, but I am safe. I can handle this."
So it's not about the cold water itself. It's about the decision to stay. It's about facing the flinch.
Precisely. It's facing the flinch and not moving. But it could be anything. It could be waking up 30 minutes earlier than you want to. It could be having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. It could be leaving your phone in the other room for an entire hour. You are proactively seeking friction to build calluses on your mind.
I like that. You are inoculating yourself against stress.
Yeah.
So when the real unexpected stress hits, you've already practiced being uncomfortable.
Yes. Now, what if you are already stressed? Let's say you are in a panic spiral right now. The book suggests the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method.
This is to stop anxiety in its tracks.
Yes, it forces the brain out of future fear, the endless loop of what if, what if, what if, and into present reality. It's very simple. You look at 5 things you can see. You name them. I see a lamp. I see a cup. I see a book.
Okay, and then
You touch 4 things. Feel the texture of your jeans, the cool surface of your desk. Then you listen for 3 things. The hum of the fridge, a car driving by outside, a bird. Then you identify 2 things you can smell. And finally, you feel 1 emotion or sensation in your body, like your feet on the floor.
it's basically hacking your senses to reboot your nervous system.
It engages the sensory cortex, which physically dampens the activity in the emotional centers of the brain. It brings you back into the room. It cuts the anxiety loop.
And for the long-term, ongoing training.
Journaling.
Hmm.
But specifically what the book calls journaling for awareness. The exercise is to list 10 instances of negative thoughts from the past week. Just write them down. Then, underneath each one, write a reasoned, logical response to it.
So it's practicing that courtroom strategy on paper.
Exactly. Treat yourself like you would treat a good friend. If your friend came to you and said, "I'm a complete loser because I made a typo in an email," you wouldn't agree with them. You'd say, "Don't be ridiculous. It's one typo. It happens to everyone." Do that for yourself. Write it down. Seeing the irrationality on paper makes it obvious.
And finally, something we all do but usually do wrong. Breathing.
Deep breathing. Specifically, box breathing. Inhale for a count of 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, and hold the exhale for 4. This isn't just a relaxation trick, it is a biological signal.
How does it work on a biological level?
It stimulates the vagus nerve. That nerve is a superhighway connecting your brain to your heart and your gut. When you breathe rhythmically and slowly like that, the vagus nerve tells your heart rate to slow down. It signals safety to the body, which in turn restores logical thinking.
So when you are breathing, shallowly panting during stress, you are telling your body there is a tiger in the room.
Correct. You're reinforcing the panic signal. Deep, slow breathing tells the body the tiger is gone. It allows your prefrontal cortex, the logic and planning part of your brain, to come back online.
Wow. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from the philosophy of the ancient Stoics to the modern tactics of the Navy SEALs. We've talked about rewiring the brain and literally arguing with our inner critic.
It really is a comprehensive toolkit for life.
So if we step back and look at the big picture, what does this all mean? What's the final synthesis?
It means that mental toughness is the bridge. It is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the tool that allows you to navigate the messy, chaotic, often unfair reality of life without losing your way or giving up.
It's about responding, not reacting.
That is the core of it all, being the eye of the storm. The storm is swirling around you, the chaos, the deadlines, the traffic, the criticism. But in the center, you are calm, you are deliberate, you are choosing your next move, not just flinching away from the pain.
And I think the most encouraging part of this entire book is the growth mindset aspect that underlies everything.
Absolutely. This is a journey, not a destination. You don't wake up one day and say, "Okay, I am tough now," and then you stop trying. It's a daily practice. It's a process.
It's like that blacksmith analogy we touched on earlier.
The pain, the heat, the constant hammering, it doesn't break the sword. It forges it. It aligns the molecules to make it stronger and more resilient. Life is the hammer. You are the steel. Every challenge is just another strike of the hammer, making you sharper, stronger.
That is a really powerful image to hold on to.
And remember, you can start today,
Yeah.
right now. You don't need to go to a SEAL training camp. You don't need to run a marathon tomorrow.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We always like to leave you with a direct challenge.
Right. I want you to identify one small, uncomfortable thing that you are avoiding today. Just one. Maybe it's a phone call you don't want to make. Maybe it's a workout you're dreading. Maybe it's just finally doing the dishes that have been sitting in the sink.
Just one thing.
Go do that one thing immediately after this deep dive ends. Don't think about it. Don't negotiate with yourself. Don't promise to do it later. Just go do it. That is your first rep in the gym of mental toughness.
Don't hope for an easy life. Train for a strong one.
Prepare your legs for the race.
Thanks for diving deep with us today on Good Read Self-Growth. We'll see you on the next one.
Stay tough out there.